On the previous Travel Seoul videos, I showed you around the northeast and the northwestern side of Seoul. The places where people hang out in those areas were formed mostly around universities in the areas. This is different for the southern part of Seoul. Firstly, there aren't as many universities on the southern part of Seoul. This is probably because the major universities in Korea were founded before the southern part of Seoul was developed. The southern part of Seoul started to be developed only in the late 1960s to 1970s. What is now southern part of Seoul wasn't even part of Seoul during the Japanese annexation era or right after the Korean War. The city grew really fast and they needed to develop areas for people to live in because the central part of Seoul was full already. That's when the Korean government started to develop the southern part of Han River to be included into Seoul. That's why the southern part of Seoul doesn't have much historic sites from Joseon Dynasty or Japanese annexation era. Everything in the area are relatively new. And because everything in the area are relatively new, the center of the southern part of Seoul is business. It's not as if there are absolutely no universities in the southern part of Seoul. President Park Chung-hee forced the #1 ranking university, Seoul National University, to be moved to the southern part of Seoul from Daehangno, which we explained when explaining the northeastern side of Seoul. Seoul National University was moved to the southwest of Seoul, and there's a street called Charosukil. The sculpture that stands in front of the university's campus looks as if it's to be read as Sha, and they added Rosukil from Garosukil, which was a really hot area in Gangnam several years ago. They do a lot of that kind of adding up of words in Korea. The locals that live in the area visit Garosukil a lot, but the area is not really visited by outsiders as much. One of the most visited places on the southwest of Seoul is definitely Yeouido. Yeouido is actually an island that was developed into a living and business area from 1968. And now, Yeouido is the center of Korea's finance. There are a lot of finance companies and institutions in the area. Naturally, shopping malls or eating places developed around the area, and one of the most popular eating places or hangout places in Yeouido is the Ifc Mall. It goes 3 floors underground. There are a lot of eating places in the mall. Yeouido is a nice place to hang out also because you just have to walk 10 minutes to get to the park right by the Han River. There are bicycle and running tracks along the north and southern side of Han River. There are parks like this where people come out for a picnic on a good weather. And Yeouido is one of the great places to reach the Han River. And of course, Korean Congress is located in Yeouido as well. Sadang is another area located on the border of east and west side of southern part of Seoul. There are streets with eating and drinking places here because it's located on the border of Seoul in Gyeonggi province and the east and west side of southern Seoul. But Noryangjin will probably be a more famous place to hang out. There's a huge fish market where you can buy live fish and seafood. This is how the system works here. You buy the fish and other seafood on the first or second floor, bring them to a restaurant located on the second floor of the market. The restaurants will cook the fish and other seafoods according to your order. They charge the cooking fee and drinks. Noryangjin is also well known as a mecca for preparing for national exams to become public workers, government workers like firemen, police, etc., and college entrance exam. The so-called hagwon, or institutions that provide specific classes to prepare for the specific exams, are concentrated in the area, and the suomseng, or those preparing for the exams, often eat what we call kopbap. It's basically rice in the cups. Students are often tight on budget and time, so they would eat kopbap because it is cheap and because they can eat it really fast. The competition for the national exams in Korea is really fierce. And Gasan Digital Complex is a famous shopping place because there are a lot of outlets concentrated in the area. You just have to walk about 5 to 10 minutes from the subway station to reach the outlets. Lastly, Shillim is also crowded with eating and drinking places. But what makes this place really special is the sundae town that's been here for years. Sundae is a Korean sausage kind of food, and this whole building is filled with sundae selling places. This is not a single restaurant. The signs you see hanging from the ceiling is where the different sellers are at. You will be served by a different seller depending on where you sit, and they'll have different sauce and different kind of sundae. On the next video, we'll take you to an area more commonly known as Gangnam, located on the southeastern part of Seoul.